Hi, welcome to this Excel tutorial video. Today we're going to look at formatting data as a table. We're going to look at how we do it, why we do it, and some of the kind of gotchas and pitfalls of doing it. So on screen I've got a set of data. It's in individual cells. It's got some text and some numbers here. And there's nothing kind of clever about it. It's a set of data and I can use Excel as you would adding sums, adding totals, adding averages, whatever else. It's just data. It's fine. It's handy. But it's not useful or as useful as it might be. So if I were to go to my summary page here and I wanted to sum all of the values from May, I would have to say equals sum, and I would go to May and I would highlight maybe my May column, and I would get a value. Looking at that, it says sum and then May stats, which is the name of my worksheet, and then E2 to E21. That's the range that it's summing. If I have a lot of worksheets, I've got to then remember the name of my worksheet and remember the range that I'm interested in. So let's try and make things a little bit easier. We can format this as a table, and when it's formatted as a table, you can then use that table and reference it in functions and formulas. So let's begin by formatting it as a table. Make sure you've got your cell within your table range, not outside of it. So we'll put it in. Click on Format as Table. This opens up this drop down here, and it says to you, right, how do you want your table to look? So there's a different kind of styles that you might want to select. So I'm going to select this blue style here. Then it says, okay, what's the range of the table? How big is this table? And by default, it will take the cursor position and get all of the data around it. And it's got it right in this case. And by default, it presumes you've got headers. And I do have headers in this case. So I'm going to click OK. And now I've got a data table. What wasn't maybe obvious, but what happens is when you select the data table, at the top here, I've got all of these different ribbon options. If I click out of my data table, I've got the average options. If I click within my data table, I've got this new little table design here. Our table now, this table here is now an object in Excel and can be referenced as such. So if I were to go to my table design, I can see I've got this table name called table 5, and that's what this is. And if I want to be sure of that, if I click elsewhere out here and I click on this little drop down, I get an option of table 5, and if I select it, it will highlight my table, just the data, not the headers, but that's my table 5. So if I click away from my table, that ribbon option disappears. If I go back to my table, I get that ribbon option, and I can click in here, and in here you can change how it looks. You can add totals. You can do a lot of different things. You can change it back to not a table and change it back to how it was. But importantly, you can rename it. So I actually don't want this to be called table 5 because that's not very helpful. I'm going to call it May table. So now it's called May table. And if I click away here and click on this little drop down, I now have an object called May table. I don't have an object called table 5 anymore, because it's been renamed May table. Now we've got something called May table, and that means that I can reference it. So if I do equals sum and do brackets, if I start typing May, it's going to say to me, oh, I've got something called May. It's called May table. Is that what you want? It is. So I'll double click that. And then May table is a table. It's got headers, and I can reference the headers. And to do that, I put a square bracket. And then it says, right, I've got 7 headers here. Are you interested in one of these? And I am. I want to double click on May. And then end square brackets, end regular brackets, and press enter, and you get this value here. And you can see, look, sum, May table, May. So here, this is saying, okay, May stats and that range, but actually I don't want that. I want to use my data table, so I'm going to say equals sum. I don't need to think about it because I've named things sensibly. It's called May table, and then square brackets, my May column, end square brackets, and there's my value. Nice and simple. So if I've got a dozen worksheets all for each different month, and I've got a summary table, as long as they are named sensibly, I don't need to go back to these worksheets. I know what they're called and I know what the columns are because Excel will help me. Now, a couple of things to note. When I'm in a data table, it's very handy. So it will always do color white, or whatever the style is. So if I change the order of data, it changes the order, but it also keeps it color white, as I want it. And that's important. So let me just show you a demonstration of a new data table. So I'm going to do a data table here. I go to home, I go to format data as table, I choose this. Now, it says you want to go from A1 to G22. I'm not interested in this top. This top row isn't my header. My header row is from row 2. So I can click on this little drop down here and I can manually select my range. So I'm going to go from A2 and I'm going to go to F22, not the G. I want to ignore the G. And I click that. My table's got headers, yes. I click OK. Now, you can see quite obviously that G is not part of that data table. But what importantly, if I click in here and I choose to order it, when I order it and change the order of it, this is not part of the table. This does not get reordered. So you've got to be kind of careful how you reference your data when you're building these things. But it's a very useful thing, and when you've got it, I can go to table design. This table is called June table. Oops, if I could type correctly. June table. And I can come to my summary table and I can say, oh yeah, for June, it is the sum of June table, square brackets. I should really rename the column header, but that doesn't matter. And there's my value. It's the same value, it's the same set of data. But it is now going to June table, and I can kind of prove that by selecting June table. And it takes me to this bit here. That's the end of this video. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them and I'll reply to you. Thanks a lot for your time. I hope this was helpful. See you next time.